I want to turn to Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama had a very, very heavy presence, a lengthy speech she made. I think it was 18 minutes. I have it broken in segments that I sent to Matt the Wonderful, and I do want to kind of break down a little bit where she was headed with some of her remarks. So I had the opening one, the very first thing she said. This is from the very beginning of her speech at the Democratic Convention last night, the very first clip with Michelle Obama.
I am one of a handful of people living today who have seen firsthand the immense weight and awesome power of the presidency. And let me once again tell you this. The job is hard. It requires clear-headed judgment, a mastery of complex and competing issues, a devotion to facts and history, a moral compass, and an ability to listen, and an abiding belief that each of the 330 million lives in this country has meaning and worth.
Allow me to remind you, she's speaking of her ex-husband, who was president for 8 years, Barack Obama, 8 years, 2 terms of the presidency, and you know where we ended up after 8 years of his presidency. A weakened America, a weakened sense of love of America, an emboldened Iran, a massively growing government dependency class, massive growth of the bureaucratic state. When she talks about her husband being smart, and he is smart, I mean, she's smart too, talks about him being smart, she's talking about he's not a principled commitment to the freedom of America, not a principled commitment to the ideas that founded America, but instead she's talking about the idea that he can sit down with a bunch of data and figure out if he's the guru in charge of the country, he knows how to tweak this and fix this and grab this power and control this. And so she's talking about his human intellect in creating policies, regardless of the fact that what happened during his presidency was we moved this country radically to the left. We had the takeover of the healthcare system almost instantly after he took office. One of the first major things any socialist or communist leader in this world does is grab control of the healthcare system, because if the government controls the healthcare system, they control you. And every socialist and every Marxist knows this. So she's trying to paint this, you need to have a really bright guy, and my husband, isn't he really bright? You need to have a person who understands the idea of America. You need to have a person committed to the principles of the founding of America. You can get people who come to work for your administration who are experts in energy and healthcare and tax policy and all sorts of policies you need to understand. The president doesn't have to be the one that has the knowledge of all those policies. He has to know the principles he stands for, and he has to know whether or not he is rooted in the idea of America as an exceptional and free nation. And then you'll hire the experts who will put policies in place to hold on to that. But, of course, she's taking shots. She's subtly taking shots at President Trump. I will tell you one little thing. I didn't pick this segment up. One little thing she talked about in the course of her remarks. She did this several times. She took shots at President Trump over and over. She finally did it very directly, but she over and over and over. But she kept saying, "Oh, but I'm not into politics. I don't like politics. I'm taking the high road." That's what she tried to say about herself as she's taking shots. She's taking the high road by taking shots. But I want to go on to the next clip that she plays. This was that I sent to Matt the Wonderful. There's actually, it's the very next one down. It's 2 little clips put together. Matt the Wonderful.
Empathy. That's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. The ability to walk in someone else's shoes. The recognition that someone else's experience has value too. Most of us practice this without a second thought. If we see someone suffering or struggling, we don't stand in judgment, we reach out. Because there, but for the grace of God, go I. It is not a hard concept to grasp. It's what we teach our children. They see an entitlement that says only certain people belong here. That greed is good and winning is everything, because as long as you come out on top, it doesn't matter what happens to everyone else. And they see what happens when that lack of empathy is ginned up into outright disdain. They see our leaders labeling fellow citizens enemies of the state while emboldening torch-bearing white supremacists. They watch in horror as children are torn from their families and thrown into cages, and pepper spray and rubber bullets are used on peaceful protesters for a photo op.
You remember when there was when Senator Ted Kennedy was still alive in the Senate, and at one point he was on one of his many riffs attacking George W. Bush, and he used the expression on the floor of the Senate. Ted Kennedy said, lie after lie after lie after lie, talking about George W. Bush, who was not lying, by the way, was not. But Kennedy did this. In fact, I probably should have dug up that little clip and played, because you just heard from Michelle Obama, lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. And I want to hit at some of these because it matters. Let me start, though, with her point about empathy. I have noticed, and this was a big takeaway from last night for some leftists, oh my gosh, I'm so happy Michelle Obama talked about empathy. She is touting left-wing policies that she knows what kind of policies that you'll have Joe Biden put in place. So she's trying to sell leftist ideas in the tone, the voice, the manner that she has that is very, very compelling. I started to say earlier, I want to say a couple things about her. She's very attractive. She has a very smooth and soothing voice. She has the ability, as she delivered her remarks, to convey emotion. A few times you hear it almost feels like she's breaking up, like her voice is breaking because she's so emotionally overwrought about what she's talking about. She is, as her husband is, a powerful orator. She's a powerful, try to connect with the people. I talk and you listen, you're drawn in, say, oh yeah, Michelle Obama, you're so great. She's selling tyranny. She is selling tyranny under the guise of wanting to ask Americans to embrace empathy. The policies she would push, the policies she supports, the policies her husband supported, the takeover of the healthcare system, the entire expansion of the federal government, destruction more and more of the private sector in America, the regulatory control in Washington that just crushed businesses. She's selling tyranny, selling socialism, selling Marxism under the guise of simply asking America to embrace empathy. Just because she has a smooth tongue and a sugary way of speaking and a compassionate way of speaking doesn't mean that what she's selling is right. She's selling evil ideas, and she's very, very good at it. But on the lie after lie after lie after lie, number one, the Obama administration, she talked about children tossed in cages. That was under the Obama administration, where they began to have the southern border overrun. And they weren't cages, but, and no one in the media or Hollywood or Congress said a word about it. When under the Obama administration, children who crossed the border and had to be separated from people because they weren't sure if they were their parents, were they being trafficked, were they victims of child trafficking? So they had to be contained. And so, yes, they were put in things built by the Obama administration that were later on the Trump administration labeled as cages. This came from the Obama team. You have the argument that Trump was supporting torch-bearing white supremacists. President Trump has condemned over and over and over the whole idea of the Klan, which again, the Klan came out of the Democrat South. The Klan was actually originally an arm of the Democrat Party to enforce their Jim Crow laws, to enforce their segregation. That's what the Klan is. And all this white robe, torch-bearing people, these were leftists, controlled by, and made up of Democrats. President Trump has not ever supported them, encouraged them. He has condemned them. He has said they have no place. And yet the left keeps up this lie. Michelle Obama is counting on you to be duped by her, counting on you to not know what the facts are, and because she can put out there saying this is what's happening, and it's all Trump, and people say, oh my gosh, who knew Trump supports KKK or torch-bearing people in white robes? He never has. And the people who did, even including up until very recently, members of the United States Senate who are Democrats, they're the ones who support the Klan. But this is when I tell you, Michelle Obama, smooth-tongued, emotion-evoking liar and a false accuser of the American people and a false accuser of this president. She also talked about the this whole concept of empathy, and I want to hit that one more time before I march on to some other things she had to say. Just because you say you listen, just because you say you teach your children empathy, doesn't mean that the political values you are pushing are the product of empathy or will help anyone. Leftists like Michelle Obama sell Marxism, sell socialist control of the government, sell government control of the healthcare system, government expansion and more control of the economy by the argument, we're just trying to help. We see someone in need, so we reach out and help. We try to help them. We see someone in need, so we want to help them. Their help means massive growth of the bureaucratic state to control businesses, massive growth of the dependency state in this country, massive growth of people dependent on welfare and food stamps and every other new program the federal government thinks up. Because when people become dependent on the federal government, they become future Democrat voters. They become the people who wait for the next iteration of free things from the government. So she is selling lies, she is telling lies, and she's doing it in a most persuasive manner. I'll tell you very quickly, we have a good friend who's a very smart guy. He's a Democrat, and he stays out of politics on social media. But even he posted this link to Michelle Obama to say, I don't really like politics that much on social media. I don't do this, but listen to her, because this is what we're missing is empathy. It's always easier for left-wingers to sell their political ideas because what they're trying to sell is, give us all the power, give us all the money, we'll make everything free, and they can make that sound empathetic. It's the same argument Castro made. It's the same argument Chavez made. Give me all the power, I'll take care of you, don't worry. We don't need the government, and we should not, in a country rooted in freedom, want to have the government be the entity that decides how much money we can have, what kind of health care we're entitled to have or not entitled to have, where we live, the whole litany of things the left is targeting doing to America if we only give them the right and the ability to do that. I have two more clips of Michelle Obama. Here we are, the next clip of Michelle Obama.
And I know that regardless of our race, age, religion, or politics, when we close out the noise and the fear and truly open our hearts, we know that what's going on in this country is just not right. This is not who we want to be.
Again, she's a little bit of her John Kasich moment there. I mean, the reason I'm doing this is because I think a lot of you listening probably already plan on voting for America, voting to preserve freedom in America, but you should be ready to respond to your friends, and you should be ready to talk about yourselves. People who watch the convention say, gee, Michelle Obama made some really, really good points about how this country is so toxic and it's so divided, and we don't want to be like this. Again, I go back to one of my points in the start of this show. Understand, the left has intentionally created the chaos and the division they are now reporting on, talking about, and blaming on Trump. There were millions of Americans during the Obama era who disagreed with hundreds of decisions of the Obama administration. Millions of Americans who did not agree with the direction Obama tried to take this country. We did not engage in the 24/7 hysterical meltdown attacks on Obama that the Democrat left has done to President Trump today. Michelle Obama is able to talk about division because the radical left has created and perpetuated and stirred up and fed the beast of that anger. She's reporting on the ugliness created by the leftists in this country and saying that's not who we are. No, it's actually not. But you know what? Just like Republicans who actually still want to have a sovereign America, a strong national defense, a free market economy, had to put up with 8 years of Barack Obama and 8 years of trying to convince people the wrongness of his policies. The left does not engage in that kind of discussion. They do not engage in the, here's why we're in favor of X and opposed to Y. They don't do that. They create hysterical outrage in the streets of our country through endless attacks on President Trump, attacks on his policies, attacks on everything he says and does. And then when they have created the anger, describe America as divided. And that's what Michelle Obama is talking about. This whole, she's very good at the visual. If we just close the door and open our hearts, we're all good people. We can all love each other. Don't worry. Just let Biden become president and everything will be fine. And we'll all love each other again because all the outrage will be gone. The outrage they created. And what will happen under Biden is what would have happened under a Bernie Sanders. The left has become Marxist. It's as simple as that. And you're either going to have America or you're going to have Marxism. One more clip by Michelle Obama. I believe we have.
Because Joe Biden has served this nation his entire life without ever losing sight of who he is. But more than that, he has never lost sight of who we are, all of us. Joe Biden wants all of our kids to go to a good school, see a doctor when they're sick, live on a healthy planet. And he's got plans to make all of that happen.
Okay, I got to tell you again, every person who spoke about Biden's character, every person, at least that I heard, now maybe some things will come up in the rest of this convention, not one of them could mention one accomplishment of Joe Biden. He's been in the Senate since 1972, I think it is. Been in the Senate since 1972. No one can list one accomplishment in all that time. What they talk about, when they talk about him, it's again that Democrat emotional tactic. Many of them mention it. Kasich mentioned it. Michelle Obama mentioned it. That Joe Biden has, and he has had terrible personal tragedy in his life. He has, and it's very sad. He lost his first wife and child in a car accident when he was a new senator. And in fact, I don't even know if he was yet in Washington, but very early on in his political career, he lost his first wife and a child in a car accident. And then while he was serving as vice president, one of his adult sons passed away from cancer. So he has had personal tragedy. And people talking at this convention were saying, he knows what grief is like. He feels the pain of people. Kind of like when Bill Clinton ran, I feel your pain, I feel your pain. These are emotional arguments leftists make. And all of us know people who have lost family members. I've lost family members. I understand how hard it is. But the fact that you've been through personal grief, the fact that you've lost people you love, which is terrible, and everyone is deserving of sympathy and love from their friends, but the fact that you have had personal loss in your life does not constitute a qualification to be president. It doesn't constitute a qualification for any political job. It does not make you a better person. It does not make you a wiser person. It does not make you wise about policy, foreign policy, tax policy, any policy. The loss of life in your family is horrible. And I've been through very painful things in our family. I do understand this. But it doesn't make a person qualified. And when you listen to everybody who mentioned Joe Biden in this litany of Democrats yesterday at the convention, when they would talk about Biden, they'd talk about, he's really nice, he's really reasonable, he's a man of faith, and, and most of them went to, he's been through grief, which is kind of what they're saying is, I can't think of any actual accomplishments. I can't think of any issue he led on. I can't think of any, initiative he started. I can't think of much of anything. Tomorrow on this show, we're going to talk a little more about Joe Biden and his unbelievable start, how he got started in politics. Simply astonishing how he actually got started in politics. And it was not It was not because he was a brilliant leader. It's because he got funded by a radical leftist organization. Okay, but back to this. I want to say on the Democrat convention, there is just a world to be learned from what you've seen so far in the Democrat convention. My takeaways on all the above is they are not able to list an accomplishment of their candidate, Joe Biden. They are not able to condemn the Marxism that is feeding Antifa, that is Antifa, the Marxism that is Black Lives Matter. They cannot condemn it in the slightest. Our cities are burning. We're in day, whatever it is in Portland, 72 or something of riots and protests and destruction. They can't condemn any of it because that's their voting base. Understand, that's the Democrat Party's voting base. They can't condemn Marxism because they are Marxists. They can't condemn it at all. They are doing the same thing, but in spades more and in volumes more than when Bill Clinton ran, and he ran on, hey, I feel your pain, send me some money, I'll make policies. That whole I feel your pain thing, they're running on empathy, and they're running on trying to work you up into anger, and into anger at President Trump over policies that his supporters want. His supporters want the secure borders. His supporters want jobs coming back. They're trying to make you angry at Trump, and in part make you angry at Trump over policies that Barack Obama put in place, such as having to restrain children who cross the southern border. And it is unclear, they either come as unaccompanied children or they come with people. It's unclear if they are really their parents or family members, or are they actually child traffickers. And fortunately, under the Obama administration and Trump, we have to restrain those children until we figure out who they are. But if I had to, I can't even think of one word to describe, but one concept that just explodes on the page if you have to listen to these Democrats is they just have to lie to win. They have to lie to win. They're selling you tyranny. They're selling you government-controlled society, but they're selling it by saying, we're empathetic. We care. We care so much more than those mean Republicans. We care. Empathy is needed. Vote for us and we'll care. But what they mean by care is they will take complete control of the healthcare system. You will have no more healthcare freedom. They will return America to a expanded government society, government-funded dependency state, government-funded programs that keep people dependent. They will expand the regulatory, the bureaucratic state in Washington, D.C. They will make it bigger. They will make it a bigger and bigger thing, because that is one of the steps along the way to getting this country to socialism. Believe Bernie Sanders when he tells you Biden is going to do what Bernie Sanders would have done anyway, which is take America as far left as he can and as fast as he can if he were to win the presidency.